My name is Isabella. I'm 17, born and raised in Columbus, Ohio. Ever since I was little, I've dreamed of going to the University of Michigan. I've always loved learning, and I worked my butt off in school. Straight A's, AP classes, volunteering, everything to make that dream a reality. Growing up, my mom, Karen, always told me, "You just focus on school, sweetie, I've got the rest covered." She said she started a college fund for me when I was a baby, and over the years she'd remind me of it like a badge of honor. "You're my smart girl, that money's waiting for you." I clung to those words, they meant everything to me. I didn't come from a rich family, but knowing there was a plan in place made me feel secure, like all my hard work would actually lead somewhere. Then there's my older brother, Jason. He's 19 now. Jason was always the fun one, the charming screw-up who somehow got away with everything. Skipped classes, failed math, partied too much. But Mom adored him. I used to think, maybe he just needs more help than I do. I gave her the benefit of the doubt. Still, deep down, I hoped that one day, just one day, she'd be just as proud of me as she was of Jason. That's why what happened next shattered me in a way I never saw coming. Everything started to feel off during my last semester of high school. It was little things at first. Mom would change the subject whenever I brought up college applications. When my acceptance letters started coming in, she barely reacted. I remember showing her my letter from Michigan. I was so excited I could barely breathe, and she just nodded and said, "That's nice, honey. We'll figure things out." I thought maybe she was stressed. She'd been picking up extra shifts at the diner, and I knew money was tight. So I didn't push. But then I overheard her on the phone one night. She was in the kitchen, pacing back and forth, whispering angrily. I could only catch bits of it. "It wasn't your money to begin with. Don't guilt me now. He needed it more." I froze. Something wasn't right, and a part of me knew in my gut, that this had to do with the college fund. I waited until she left for work one morning, then checked the old family filing cabinet. There was a folder labeled, "College Savings, Isabella." My hands shook as I opened it. Empty. No bank statements, no balance updates. Nothing from the last 2 years. I felt like the floor disappeared beneath me. That same week, Jason pulled into the driveway with a brand new Dodge Charger. Red, shiny, loud. He revved the engine like it was a damn parade. Mom ran outside, laughing, hugging him like he'd just come home from war. And me? I stood there on the porch, realizing that I already knew the truth. I just didn't want to believe it. I waited until Jason left and Mom was alone in the kitchen. I walked in, my heart pounding so loud it felt like it echoed in the room. "Mom," I said, trying to keep my voice steady, "did you take the money from my college fund?" She didn't look at me at first, just kept washing dishes like she hadn't heard me. So I asked again, louder. This time she sighed, turned off the water, and leaned against the counter. "Why are you even asking that, Isabella?" "Because it's gone," I said. "I checked. There's nothing left in that account. And Jason just rolled up in a brand new car. Tell me I'm wrong." She looked at me, tired and annoyed. Not guilty, not sorry. "Jason needed that car," she said calmly, like it was the most obvious thing in the world. "He's trying to get his life together, and a good car helps with that. He has interviews lined up." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "That money was for my future," I whispered. "You promised me." Mom shrugged. "You're smart, you'll get scholarships. You're a girl, Bella. You don't need to carry all that debt. You'll get married someday and your husband can help out." My stomach dropped. "So that's it? You sold my future for Jason's convenience?" "Don't be dramatic," she snapped. "He's your brother. You should want to help him. Family comes first." No, that wasn't family, that was favoritism. And in that moment, I realized something I had tried to deny my whole life. Mom never saw my future as worth protecting. I didn't say anything else that night. I just went upstairs, locked my door, and cried until my chest hurt. The kind of crying that leaves you hollow, like something inside you broke and there's no putting it back together. The next morning, I didn't eat breakfast. I didn't speak to Mom. She acted like nothing had happened, like she hadn't just stolen my future and handed it to my brother wrapped in a shiny red bow. I couldn't stand to be in that house anymore. I packed a small bag and texted my best friend, Emily. Her parents had always been kind to me, and when I explained everything, they told me I could stay with them for a while, no questions asked. When I walked out of the house, Mom didn't try to stop me. She just stood in the doorway and said, "You'll come back when you cool off." I didn't look back. Jason texted me later that night. All he said was, "I didn't ask for the money. Don't be mad at me." No apology, no ownership, just more of the same. I sat there in Emily's guest room, staring at the ceiling, realizing the worst part wasn't even losing the money. It was losing the illusion that I mattered equally in my own family. And that's when something in me shifted. I wasn't going to wait for anyone to save me. If I wanted a future, I was going to have to build it myself. Emily's family gave me more kindness in a week than I'd gotten at home in years. Her mom helped me find a part-time job at a local coffee shop. It wasn't glamorous. I scrubbed floors and poured lattes. But every dollar I earned felt like a small step toward taking back control. At school, I talked to my guidance counselor, Mrs. Wilkins. She listened, really listened, and helped me apply for emergency scholarships, grants, anything I could find. She even called in a favor with an alum from the University of Michigan, who ran a nonprofit offering last-minute aid for students in need. Meanwhile, I kept up my grades, worked 20 hours a week, and applied to every scholarship I could find online. My nights were filled with essays and exhaustion, but I didn't care. Because for the first time, I wasn't doing it to please anyone. I was doing it for me. I didn't tell Mom where I was staying. She didn't ask. Jason didn't text again. It was like I'd become invisible. And oddly, that gave me peace. I started to let go of the version of family I thought I had. It hurt. God, it hurt. But there was something beautiful in the pain. Like tearing down rotten wood to build something stronger. And slowly I started building. The email came on a rainy Thursday afternoon. Subject line: "Congratulations on your admission to the University of Michigan." I blinked, then read it again. And again. My hands were shaking, my chest tight. They'd accepted me. With a near full-ride scholarship. Between that, the grants, and my savings from the coffee shop, I could actually go. I broke down crying in the back room of the cafe, apron still on, coffee stains on my sleeves. But for once, they were tears of joy. I'd done it, without my mom, without Jason, without the fund I was promised. I did it anyway. A few days later, my phone rang. It was Mom. She didn't say congratulations. She didn't ask how I was. She said Jason had just lost his job and things were really hard right now. Then she hesitated before asking, "Do you think he could stay with you a while, just until he gets back on his feet?" My chest tightened again, but for a very different reason. This wasn't guilt. This wasn't heartbreak. This was clarity. "No," I said quietly. "I'm sorry, Mom, I really am. But I need to focus on my life now." There was a long pause on the line. Then, she hung up. And that was it? No screaming, no begging. Just silence. Moving into my dorm at the University of Michigan felt like stepping into another life. The room was small, but it was mine. My bed, my books, my rules. For the first time ever, I could breathe without waiting for someone else's approval. I decorated the walls with photos, me and Emily, my favorite teachers, sunsets from the summer I thought would break me but didn't. Not a single photo of my family. I wasn't trying to erase them, but I wasn't carrying them with me either. College was hard. I worked weekends, studied late, barely had time to eat some days. But I loved it. Every bit of it. Because I was building something that no one could take from me this time. Sometimes I'd catch myself glancing at my phone, wondering if Mom would call. But she never did. Neither did Jason. And somehow, I stopped needing them to. The people who showed up for me, Emily, her family, Mrs. Wilkins, even my manager at the cafe, they were the ones who reminded me that family isn't always blood. Sometimes it's the people who see your worth when others don't. And slowly I stopped feeling abandoned. Instead, I felt free. 4 years later, I walked across the graduation stage with my cap tilted slightly and my heart full. No one from my family came. But Emily and her parents were there, cheering like I was their own. Mrs. Wilkins sent flowers. My old cafe manager mailed me a card with $20 and a note. "You earned every damn bit of this." I didn't cry. I smiled so hard my cheeks hurt. Because I had done it. I'd taken the broken pieces they left me with and built a future anyway. After graduation, I moved to Chicago for a job at a small but growing marketing firm. It wasn't glamorous, but it was mine. My tiny apartment smelled like new paint and cheap coffee, and it felt like freedom. One night, I got a letter. It was from Mom. She didn't apologize, not really. She said she hoped I was doing okay. Said Jason was back home now working part-time, still figuring things out. I read it twice. Then I folded it neatly and placed it in a drawer. Because some doors don't need to be slammed shut. They just need to stay closed. I don't hate my mom, but I love myself more. And I finally know what that means.